All right, so this video is to help go over real wages. So go ahead and set something up on your piece of paper that looks like this. Real wages is a concept that we are introduced to here in Unit 2, and they're going to sustain for our entire course. And sometimes students struggle with real wages, so I'm here to give you just some basic tips of what it means. When I first started doing economics, something that was hard for me to remember was the difference between real and nominal wages. I came up with this little device. I feel like it's easier for me to remember if I say, oh, real tells me what's really going on. Is price level increasing to an extent that it's hurting the way that my wages feel, or are my wages keeping up with it? What's really going on? So real wages have been adjusted for price level. You might see people say real wages are adjusted for inflation, and that's not wrong. It's just, I think, a little misleading at times because that only implies that prices are going up as opposed to prices going down too. So prices can inflate, they can deflate. And I think if you just say price level, you're encompassing all of those things. So first of all, one of the things that's important for us to commit to memory, and I'm going to turn this off so I have more space. One of the things that's important is that you know the difference between nominal and how to talk about nominal. So oftentimes we use the word current dollars. So we're in today's current dollars. So if you make, for example, $10 an hour, that's your pay today. Real is adjusted for price level, and we do that by using this formula. It's the change in the nominal price minus the change in the price level. And that's really important formula to commit to memory. You're going to use it frequently throughout our course. Now, in the examples I'm going to show you today, you're going to use actual numbers, but in some instances, you're only going to know if prices are going up or going down, and whether or not nominal wages have changed as well. So you're often going to be given a situation where you don't know actual numbers, but you also want to be able to sort of plug in some numbers and test out whether or not real wages would be changing. Now, this is how you calculate real anything. So as we go forward in our course, we're also looking at real GDP, and we also end up looking at real interest rates too. So those two things, GDP comes in this unit, and then interest rates doesn't come until unit 4, but it does come up a little bit here in this unit. And you sort of just need a working understanding of the fact that interest is money that we pay, and that inflation can help people who have borrowed money. But interest rates in depth, we will study more in Unit 4. Okay, so that's coming a little bit further into our class. Now, let's look at some examples, okay? Let's pretend that prices have gone up by 3%. We're experiencing a 3% inflation rate. What would happen in these following scenarios? So let's look at Joe. If Joe's nominal wages went up by 4%, would Joe's real wages be changing? Well, if I use this formula up here, the change in nominal minus the change in price level. So his nominal wages went up 4 and prices went up 4. So 4 minus 3 equals a 1% wage increase. So Joe is lucky he got a raise because his wages went up, but they didn't go up 4% because prices went up by 3%. So even though Joe's boss can say to him, hey, listen, I cut you a big favor. I increased your pay by 4%. If the cost of living has gone up 3%, Joe actually only got a 1% raise. Let's take a look at Sam. Sam wasn't so lucky. Sam got a raise as well, and while on paper a raise looks great, if prices are going up by 3%, and if I do the nominal minus the price level, the nominal change is 3 minus the change in price level, Sam is experiencing zero change in the real wage. And what that means is not that Sam's making less money, it's that Sam is making the same amount of money in terms of the cost of living. So a lot of people will refer to this as simply a cost of living adjustment in their wages. So, for example, when unions bargain with their management to get a pay increase, they often use the prices in the economy as a bargaining chip to say, hey, prices have gone up 3%. And in order to afford the cost of living, we need a raise. And if people can bargain for a little bit more than the change in the prices, then they actually are getting a raise. But we also want to just make sure that, on paper, these two individuals look like they're getting a nice little increase in their pay. But when it comes down to reality, remember what I said, what's really going on is that Joe is only getting a 1% raise and Sam isn't getting a raise at all, just merely affording the cost of living. Lastly, Lee isn't so lucky at all because Lee's job is not giving any change to the wage. So there's a zero change in the nominal wages minus that change in the price level. And Lee is actually taking a pay cut of 3%. So when we see prices going up and we don't get a wage increase, we don't get a raise, we're actually losing money and we're taking a pay cut if we experience inflation. So these are three different individuals who are experiencing this change in price level in a very profound and different way. So one person is able to just break even. One person is in reality taking a pay cut, and the other person in reality is getting a raise, but it's not as substantial as the on paper raise would imply. So again, when we go back to this concept of real wages, we're talking about what's really going on with my life, really? What's really going on with my pay? Am I earning more money? Or am I just breaking even? Or am I actually experiencing a cut in wages because of that change in price level?